So this video is way overdue. Today, I'm going to be talking about my experience in buying my first multi-needle embroidery machine. Not going to be talking about the specifics of the machine I bought, how to use it, but rather more the journey I went through when I decided I needed to upgrade from my single needle flat bed machine to a multi-needle embroidery machine. So I'm making this video to help share my experience on how I went about deciding I was ready to upgrade from a single needle flatbed to a multi-needle embroidery machine. I know for me, it was a very scary process because it is a very big purchase I made. A lot of the information that I found throughout the way took a lot of digging and prodding, snooping around. So I hope this makes it easier as I share things like price and how it's been since I've had it. So taking a step back, talking about my first embroidery machine. So I started machine embroidery back in 2017. My first machine was a Brother Innovis 1400. It was just a single needle flatbed machine and I paid $1,600 for it, which was a lot of money for me at the time. It was a very nerve-wracking purchase and I was buying this machine purely as a hobby. I had not decided to start the business side of things yet. So it was a very expensive hobby I was getting into. I'd already done sewing for years and I thought machine embroidery seemed like the likely next step. So after I bought my machine, for about 3 years, I had used that Brother machine just for home hobby stuff. Made a lot of pillows, kitchen towels, embellished jeans, just fun projects for myself. It wasn't until the end of 2020 that I decided to start a little side business doing embroidery. So with my single needle, I started making patches and I did a couple tote bags and I would sell them at local craft fairs. So when I started my hobby business, I quickly realized that if I wanted to pursue this, I had to upgrade to a multi-needle. The biggest difficulty I had with my single needle was I wanted to do a lot of sweaters and tote bags. So unlike the multi-needle that has this tubular arm here where it makes hooping round objects like a tote bag or sweater very easy, on a single needle, I was very frustrated with how you had to fold the fabric out of the way. I did a couple of jackets, for example, and I had so many clips around the machine to make sure none of the fabric got caught. And I actually just sat there for 2 hours because the machine would get caught in the fabric and ruin everything. And then when I would try to do tote bags, for example, because of the size of the tote bag I was embroidering, the only way to get it on the single needle was if I took out the side seams and laid the bag flat. And I realized how much time it took to do this and that it would drive me crazy. But I knew multi needles were expensive. So I kept using my single needle doing my side business for about 2 years. And then in 2023, I had decided it's time to get serious and let's buy a multi needle machine. So when I was ready to get a multi needle, the first thing I did was I created a Google Sheet and I started listing down all the companies that sold machines that I was potentially interested in getting, all the different models they had, and price. Now, price was the most frustrating thing. As I realized when searching for embroidery machines, most embroidery machine companies do not publicly display their pricing online, which is very frustrating. A lot of times you have to contact the distributor, they'll get you in touch with a salesperson, and then they can talk pricing from there. I don't know why they make this so difficult, but that's just the way it is. But what I did is I went on various forums such as Reddit, digismith.com, t-shirtforums.com, and even some Facebook groups. And anytime someone would talk about purchasing their embroidery machine, I would take note of the price they paid and I added it to my list. And that kind of gave me a good gauge to see what I can expect to pay based on the machine I want. I did get in touch with two embroidery machine distributors, specifically ZSK and Happy Japan. And when I spoke to their sales reps and they gave me the price of their machines, it was in line with what I was seeing online. So that's always a good tip I recommend, especially on Facebook. I know every embroidery machine brand has their own Facebook group for users where they can get help and ask questions. So I joined the Happy Japan, the Tajima, the ZSK support groups, and people often talk about how much they paid for the machine. So that was good to know. So initially, I thought I would get a Brother multi-needle machine. I had the Brother single needle machine, my sewing machine, my serger were Brother, even my printer and scanner at home were Brother. So I thought logical sense is get a Brother multi-needle. But what I found in researching the Brother multi-needles is they're not really branded as professional commercial machines. They're branded as hobby machines for the most part. And you don't really see professional embroidery workshops. I'm talking about the kinds of places that do all the logo embroideries for big brands, hats, caps, polos. You're not going to find those shops running Brother machines. I knew I wanted this machine to be an investment to last me for 10 years, and I wanted to grow into it. So that kind of ruled out Brother for me. As I was researching embroidery machine brands and companies, there were four that stood out to me as being top tier: ZSK, Tajima, Barudan, and Happy Japan. So ZSK quickly became one of the top brands I was interested in. I kept hearing them being described as the Cadillac of embroidery machines, and that impressed me very much. And at the time, this was when I was living in Wisconsin, I was actually only a few hours away from the ZSK distributor. So when I bought my machine, I knew I wanted to be close to a distributor because if anything ever went wrong, I wanted to know I was within driving distance of either having a tech come out or, worst case, having to take my machine over there. So I contacted the ZSK distributor. This was, I believe they were called SPSI. They not only sold ZSK embroidery machines, but also a bunch of printmaking, like large screen printing machines. So I drove over there one day to their office in Minnesota, and I spent the day with one of the sales reps, and he kind of took me through going over all the machines. He did a sample sew out of one of the files I had, and I was very impressed. The thing with ZSK, though, is they are branded as the Cadillac of embroidery machines, and they tend to be one of the more expensive brands. And one thing I knew I wanted to do with machine embroidery to expand upon is do large canvas type artwork. I had attempted to do some with my single needle and I was able to make, little tiny designs, but I knew when I get a multi needle, it does have to have a big field. And at the time, ZSK had a machine called the Sprint 7 XL, and they had actually a large embroidery field. I can't recall off the top of my head what the dimensions are, but I'll post it here. And I did want this machine because they always say in embroidery when you're buying a machine, go for the biggest hoop you can afford. But the 7XL, I believe they started at around 26, 27,000. That's a hefty price to pay. And I wasn't looking on spending that much on my machine. I wanted it to be, under 20, ideally between 10 and 15. The SK did have a 12 needle, which was around 12,000. And I thought that seems reasonable. But then I wasn't going to get the big, large hoop. So I thought about it. I took a few months break. At that point, I had moved back to California. And in California, unfortunately, there was no ZSK distributor. I could have ordered a ZSK. They would have shipped it to me no problem. But again, I didn't want to be far away from a tech if needed. Now, there are techs for all the machine companies who will fly out or travel to where you are, but then again, you're having to pay for their flight and hotel if they are taking overnight trips, and I didn't want to have that as an added cost. So I looked around for distributors in California, and in Southern California, there was Tajima and Happy Japan. So I reached out to both of them asking, for an appointment. Tajima actually did not respond to me. I emailed them and never heard back. But I did hear back from Happy Japan. Now, this was the Happy Japan USA distributor. There are two Happy Japan distributors in the US. Happy Japan USA only does California, Arizona, Nevada, and Texas, I think. And then Texmac, they service Happy Japan, all of the US. But Happy Japan USA, it was only 4 hours away from me. And it was actually perfect timing because there was the Long Beach Expressions Expo, which is a big expo for people in the print apparel industry. They were going to have embroidery machine distributors there, such as Happy Japan, and a bunch of other vendors geared towards people in the apparel industry, screen printers, car wrappers, things like that. So I took a trip down to Long Beach and I had set up time to speak with one of the Happy Japan sales reps while they were at the event. I showed up and they had all of their machines on the floor running for the show. So actually, both of the Happy Japan distributors were at this event. So I did talk to both of them. Happy Japan USA did have cheaper prices and also the model I wanted, this one here. For the other distributor, they said if I wanted it, they would have to order it. It would take over a month. I didn't want to wait. So right off the bat, I knew I would go with Happy Japan USA. Now, this machine here, the HCD3EX, they quoted me $16,000, which was a show special, I guess. And yes, that's a lot of money. But like I said, the ZSK version of their extended border was about 26, 27,000. So that's a pretty big price discrepancy when you're talking about getting a machine with a big border frame. And initially, I thought, well, why is their machine so much cheaper? Are they trying to swindle me? Is this not a good brand? I told them I would take the day to think about it and come back the next day since the event was running for 2 days. One thing I actually did was I went on Google Maps and I typed just embroidery near me. And I wanted to see all of the businesses, the embroidery businesses in my area, what machines they ran. So these are the businesses that run all the logos for schools, fast food restaurants, and so on. I would go to Google Photos, pull up the business, click on their photos. And a lot of times, these embroidery shops will have pictures of their space where they work and they have their machines on display. So I took note of out of all the shops in my area, I took tally of what brand machines they're using. And the most of them were using Happy Japan. So that right there, it made me feel a lot more at ease. Happy Japan was the top one I saw, followed by Tajima and Bardem. So that put me at ease and it kind of solidified my choice to go with Happy Japan. So the next day I returned to the event and I told them I would like to take this machine, $16,000. We signed the forms. And then 2 days later, they had delivered it to my house. So it was a pretty fast turnaround time to placing the order to getting my machine. They had the tech come out and assemble the machine for me. And they spent 5 hours helping me learning the machine, which was great. I was very overwhelmed by the end of it, but it was very helpful. And here we are 1 year later, and I can say this machine has been great. I have had no problems with it. Any problems they did have were user error, me not threading the machine right, or something getting tangled because I didn't install the threads correctly. The machine itself has been fine. I have not had to call support or get maintenance out here for anything. Yeah, it was the biggest purchase I've ever made so far. Very nerve wracking, but I'm very glad I went with Happy Japan. So Happy Japan is not sponsoring me or anything like that. I'm just a Happy Japan fangirl. And if I do get to the point where I need a second machine, I definitely will be going with Happy Japan again, specifically Happy Japan USA, located in Southern California. I know I said I was set on ZSK originally. If ZSK opened a branch in California tomorrow, I do not think that would change my mind. I would still stick with Happy Japan. I think for the price and value, it's just a great offer. And having a multi needle in general is great. Even if I didn't run my embroidery business or I stopped selling online and at craft shows, I would still use this as a hobby machine. So I see this machine lasting, for the next 10 years. I look forward to using it. So if you're looking to make the jump from a single needle to a multi needle, yes, I know it's scary. I hope this video was informative and helpful. If there's any questions you have I didn't answer, feel free to comment and I will let you know my thoughts. And yeah, thanks for joining me. See you next time.